Well, the crypto market had a rather rough week this week, as of course we did see it start off with all of the volatility from the tariffs and then end off with a lot of sideways or downward movement. Now, as a result of this rough week, I wanted to just give you all an update on my thoughts and opinions on the market, kind of how I think things are shaping out right now, how I'm feeling, what I'm doing, and much more. And so, with that said, look, let's not waste any more time at all and let's get straight into it. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about is from a macro perspective. So, what we're going to do is we're going to start from the macro perspective, talk about, where things are in the US, kind of how I think these things are shaping and molding and impacting crypto. And then we'll trickle it down into some of our metrics and then our charts. So you get a full overview of how I'm feeling about crypto right now. But from a macro perspective, I'm actually feeling a little bit better than most people. A lot of people are stressed out and nervous right now. And I actually think that the majority of the reason as to why people have been stressed or uncertain is actually coming towards an end. A lot of the uncertainty that we saw within not only just the crypto market, but stock markets and other asset classes in general was that whenever a president takes office, you never really know what they're going to do. They're really going to show you their hand within those first 2 weeks. And those first 2 weeks are going to try to get a lot of legislation signed and passed. They're going to start to make a bunch of changes and implementations to start to get the ball rolling in the general direction as to where they want this thing to go, right? How do they want the economy to look, the overall, their administration to look, and things like that, right? And so whenever a new president comes in, oftentimes markets do respond somewhat poorly because there's uncertainty about it. You don't know what these changes are going to do. What are these certain things that this president's going to do that are going to cause things to shift? And then with that thing shifts, what's going to break from that shift? You know what I mean? And knowing that Donald Trump was going into office, who is a super volatile president, who does have a lot of super extreme things that he does every now and then, a lot of people were uncertain. Where I think we're at a point where we're kind of past it to some degree, right? I think Donald Trump maybe hasn't put all of his cards on the table, but he's made it rather clear what his aspirations are and what he's trying to accomplish. And I would say the majority of the things, if not everything that he's put out there and thrown out there, is to some degree a benefit to crypto, if not anything, just a net neutral to crypto, right? I've not heard anything from his administration. I'm not seeing anything from his administration that worries me for the sake of crypto, except for the whole meme coin thing. That was weird. I didn't like that approach. But outside of that, the fact that they're starting from more of a foundational perspective, they're looking at it from a legislational perspective, putting crypto task force in place, starting to try to get the regulations much more understandable. I think that that's a step in the right direction. And it shows me that from a crypto perspective, Donald Trump is actually in his administration are taking a strong foundational approach. This is something I've told you about before. Now, not only that, though, but from an economic perspective, it also seems like things are in a pretty decent place. There was a lot of concern and uncertainty revolving the tariff situation, in which we saw that, hey, like, okay, well, if Trump goes in and he starts doing, 25% inflation on Canada, or inflation is crazy, 25% tariff on Canada, a 25% tariff on Mexico, 10% on China, that is going to likely cause inflation. That is going to start to, impact the way in which we've been seeing this economy starting to recover from, of course, that run, that hyperinflationary period in which we were in. And so there was a lot of concern around that as well. How is that going to impact the economy? And now that for the most part, it does seem as if that is going in the right direction, right? Canada and Mexico negotiating, China, of course, not having anything to do with it as they do. It does seem to me as if there is some stability in the market because everyone's like, okay, well, nothing, blew up. Everything is looking pretty solid. Some changes were made, but nothing catastrophic. And I think personally, I'm now starting to see the bigger picture in the sense that, okay, this is going to be fine, right? Like, I think the Donald Trump wave or rush is starting to kind of go away a little bit. And I think that should start to stabilize the market to some degree. Now, with that in mind, so from a macro perspective, economy, US, stuff like that, I'm actually pretty okay. Obviously, we kind of just need to see how inflation numbers and stuff come back in. I do think that we are going to see a lot of constraint on this market until we do see quantitative easing, right? And I'm not talking about just pure quantitative or just, kind of basic quantitative easing. I do think that it is going to take a rather strong injection of liquidity into the altcoin market to really kick them into gear to get them going. I just don't think we're in the right macro environment for a true bullish, honest altcoin season, right? And so because of that, to me, it's like we're in a pretty okay spot in the economy, but we're not in a great spot. So I'm feeling good, but I'm not feeling great, if that makes sense. I am kind of practicing patience. I am aware that a lot of the things that are going to happen in the world of crypto are going to rely on the economy just getting better and starting to see more macroeconomic factors actually causing, just shifting things, right? Because crypto, in my opinion, will go up over the long term, whether or not catalysts are happening or not. So I don't think catalysts are all that important. But if we want this to be a bull run, and if we want this to actually see the crypto market gaining a lot of traction, we will need to see a little bit more injection of liquidity into the, just the general world of retail, which can come through things like quantitative easing, reduction of interest rates, things like that. So again, from a macro perspective, and sorry for the 5-minute talk here, but from a macro perspective, looking good, not looking great, not a bad spot to be in. Now, From a fundamental perspective, things are actually looking pretty dang solid, I will say. If I actually do go ahead and head over to let's go over here. If I actually do kind of just get an idea of how things have been performing a little bit recently, you can kind of see that we're not in a terrible spot, right? If we actually go up to the crypto fear and greed index, we are sitting in fear right now, which I do personally like. I like whenever we see this market in fear. History says that this is one of the best times to be doing some accumulating. If you look all the way back to say 2023, every single time that we've seen a period in which been in this zone, we have seen the market eventually recover. Sometimes it takes months, sometimes it takes weeks, but history says that this is a fantastic time to start doing those accumulations. If we do look at something like the RSI heat map on the 1 week, what this shows us is that there has been a lot of cryptos. I mean, basically everything except for Bitcoin and XRP has just nosedived into the weak or oversold zone. And quite simply, what this means is that these cryptos are being sold too much too fast, basically. And oftentimes, whenever you see cryptos in these weaker zones or oversold zones, it will usually imply that this is a pretty solid time to be doing some accumulating, because again, history says that this period when we're in weaker oversold is the best time. And we just got there this week. All throughout this week, we saw, at the beginning of the week, we saw a lot of cryptos in this neutral zone, but now they have finally crossed that threshold. That average is almost in the weak threshold as well, only being supported and held up by like Bitcoin and XRP. And what that tells me is that one, we are still in a Bitcoin-led market, obviously, but two, that these altcoins are probably starting to get to real discounted prices. And this could probably be a pretty good time to start looking to get those accumulations going, right? I wouldn't be doing anything big. I've told you that consistently, and I'll talk about it more in the next part of this video. I wouldn't be doing anything big. I wouldn't really be doing anything on leverage, to be honest, but I do think just general accumulation here does make a ton of sense because of just how oversold this market is from a grand perspective. And so with that in mind, from these fundamental metrics, things are looking pretty good. Some other fundamental metrics that I do always keep an eye on is just general Bitcoin market cycle bottom ROI. So what this tells us is, how is this market actually performing in comparison to other markets, right? Are we seeing this market change at all? Are we starting to see this crypto market diverging from the rest? And I would actually say that we're still in a pretty good spot, right? So what you can see is that this pink line is actually this 2023, 2024, 2025 market from the bottom to now. And if you put that in a comparison to the last cycle, which is the green line, and then of course the cycle before that, which is the yellow line, I mean, the crypto market is still, especially Bitcoin, is still in a rather similar place, right? Maybe underperforming a little bit because obviously we are seeing the macro side of things a little bit in a more constrained period. But especially if you put it in a comparison to that cycle from like 2017, 18, and 19, you can really see here that this crypto, or more like 16 and 17, you can see that the crypto market, especially Bitcoin again, is performing very similarly, right? We've been in kind of pullback or cool down phases basically every single time that we've gone into this portion of the cycle. We ran right here, we went sideways. We ran right here, we went sideways. We ran right here, we went sideways. And so history says that this doesn't have to imply or mean that the bottom is in. Every single time that we've gone from a period like this continued forward, especially as we did see more macroeconomic things shape a bit of a better picture, we have actually seen the market rally. And so from a more this fundamental perspective, I would say I think we're still in an okay spot. Definitely underperforming, and I think it makes a lot of sense, but not in a terrible place like a lot of people would want to convince you. And then with that in mind, another thing that I have really been keeping an eye on a lot recently has also been the risk metrics. So what you can see here, and one thing that I keep an eye on a lot from a macro perspective, is our risk metrics. And historically, so the higher this red line goes, basically, the more risky the market is. That's the easiest way to remember it. And historically, history says that whenever we do see the top of the market going, we're usually at like peak risk, meaning that things are getting extremely scary. And it doesn't have to be the very top, but we usually do close in between this 1 and the 0.9 range. And what I've been paying attention to is the fact that every single time the crypto markets entered into a period like this, in which we saw, of course, risk run, fall, and recover, I've started to actually notice that typically does imply that we aren't at the very top quite yet. And does this mean, of course, that we aren't, like, the crypto market couldn't have topped? No, it definitely could have topped, right? Because we are seeing divergences. But at the end of the day, I mean, if you go look back the last cycle, we had this mid-cycle rally. We pulled back a good bit as things started to get a little bit boring. And then we started to see the rally towards the end of the year. The same thing somewhat happened right here, whereas we saw a risk run up, kind of cool down a little bit for a little while, and then we saw the market continue. And the same here, right? We run up, kind of cool down a little bit right here, and then continue. And so I've been keeping an eye on risk as well. And while I've been paying attention to this, I'm just noticing like we're still in a spot where it's not just absolutely running out of control. We started to see the market really stabilize a good bit. And I think this is going to open the door of opportunity for that more macro institutional investment, because they're not going to feel like their investment is as risky, because of course it's been pulling back and kind of cooling down for a while. And so from a fundamental perspective, kind of looking at all these charts, things do look pretty solid to me. And of course, from a more technical perspective, I saved it for last because of course it is going to be very short and sweet. Whenever it comes to a technical perspective, I think there are two very clear pictures that are being painted. Picture number one is that we're still in the HMZ and we need to be careful while we're in it. Okay, the HMZ is a high manipulation zone. It's a zone where I do believe that a lot of liquidations are going to happen. If we do head over to the liquidation map, what you can see here is that there is still a substantial amount of liquidation sitting in the market, especially if we do head over to something like the 30-day. You can really see how this is playing out. If the market goes up, we'll see 11 billion in liquidations. If the market goes down, we'll see 5 billions in liquidations. So there's over $16 billion worth of liquidations just sitting within a couple $1,000s of us, about 10,000 in each direction. And so knowing that, obviously, and knowing we're in a zone like this where there are going to be a lot of liquidations, you can still expect that there's going to be a lot of volatility. This market may absolutely just rip to the upside or rip to the downside, violently liquidating everybody in there. And I've told you consistently, until we get out of this red box, I'm still just not doing much. Over the last week or so, as Bitcoin dominance, has really started to grow, it has shown and kind of paint the picture for me that we are still in a Bitcoin-led season. We need to be focusing on Bitcoin because, as you all have noticed, as Bitcoin has started going down and trickling downwards, it's been absolutely just draining the altcoins of liquidity. And that means that, okay, Bitcoin is the main focus right now. And until Bitcoin decides what it's going to do in here, you shouldn't really be that focused on anything else unless you're looking for discounted prices on some other altcoins if you're doing some general dollar cost averaging. We are still stuck in that battle that I told you all about. I don't know if you remember that, but I'm sorry, it's not clicking off. There we go. I don't know if you guys remember that or not, but I told you all not too long ago that there has been a battle between this golden Fibonacci zone and this golden Fibonacci zone, and we're still kind of stuck there. And so no major update there. It just means that the market is still just trying to decide what it's going to do, and Bitcoin is trying to figure out, okay, who has the advantage right now? Is it the bears or is it the bulls? And so, of course, from this perspective, not great, not good. And that's kind of the general story of this video, right? From a macro perspective, things are not fantastic, but they're definitely not terrible. I would say they're pretty good. From a fundamental perspective, things are actually pretty good, right? You look at your liquidation maps, we are finally starting to see a shift back in the direction in which it means that short traders are shorting the market like crazy. And oftentimes we do see the market able to rally when that happens. You look at your fear and greed index, and that is in fear. You look at your RSI heat map, that's oversold. And so we're actually in a pretty good spot from a fundamental perspective, just showing that the cycle is moving similarly to other cycles. People are just blowing it out of proportion. And in a period like right now where risk isn't super high, I think that actually could be a pretty sizable or decent time to take some advantage of that, right? And be able to get some of those DCAs in and start looking for these discounted cryptos. And so my strategy right now is a quite simple one, guys. I am going to continue to focus on Bitcoin from an analysis perspective because Bitcoin is going to tell me where this market is going. But while that is happening, I am kind of discount hunting on some of my different altcoins such as Ondo and HBAR and maybe even a little bit of SHIB and Jasmy and SWI and Sol and some of those other ones that have taken quite a beating, especially something like SWI, right? Something that has taken quite a beating. It has pulled back quite a bit. I mean, this one fell at one point over 55%. So I do think these are good discounts to be getting those small DCAs in. So that is what I am actually going to start doing pretty soon here, now that I am feeling a little bit more confident. So obviously, there are many things coming up, a lot of economic data that we're going to go over very soon. But the general purpose of this video is that we're in a good spot, not a great spot, but a good spot. And so I am going to start doing some dollar cost averaging. I am going to be doing some small purchases here and there. Nothing big, no leverage, nothing like that right now. Just some small DCAs, taking advantage of this pullback while we have it. And so with that in mind, if you do want to see the things that I am buying, I will let you know they are available for you over on the Discord server. This is where you can go in and kind of see these different purchases I make, right? And especially back on the second when we bought like Bitcoin at 90 something thousand. ETH around 2,500, Sol around $184, right? And a lot of those purchases are still holding up pretty dang on good. So if you do want access to that and much more, I will let you know you can check out our school, which is linked down below. Guys, in our school, we have a very simple mission. We take crypto investors like yourselves. We give you courses, coaching, classes, live streams, workshops, signals, research, and more, in which we're going to help you define your strategy because strategies are where gains are made. And I'm not talking about little gains. I'm talking about real gains. If we go look at the gain section, you can see 200%, 40%, 100%, 50%, 25, 30 over and over and over again. We are now seeing this community alone, which currently only has, let's see, 1,236 members generating over $3 million in profit, which is just absolutely ridiculous. And don't get me wrong, there are losses, but we talk about those losses. We learn lessons from these losses and we push through those losses to get back to making gains. And so again, if you want to be a part of this community of over 1,200 people, feel free to check out the link down below. The best part about it is you get your money back guaranteed. If you don't like the course or the courses or the classes or whatever, feel free to get your money back. It's no problem. And it starts as little as $5 a month. for a very limited amount of time. So feel free to check that out. I will remind you all, you have less than 2 days now. If you do want to sign up over on BitUnix, you can get up to $20,000 right now through my link to BitUnix, which will be linked down in the description below. And of course, don't forget that also includes a 20% cashback on up to $200 in futures bonuses. What that means is if you deposit $1,000, for example, they'll give you 20% back to start trading with today, meaning they'll give you $200 to start trading with today. And whatever profit you make from that is yours to keep. If you deposit 500, they give you 100. You get the point, right? And so with that in mind, go take advantage, get some cash back, get some free trades in. Literally, you get up to $200 worth of free trading. So go take advantage of that. There's a very limited amount of time for that. So feel free to check that out. That will be linked down in the description for you below. And just keep an eye out. Of course, I know I have been a little bit more MIA recently, as we have been kind of, in a bit of a more boring market. I've been getting a lot of stuff done. I'm currently out on my bachelor's trip, so getting a little bit more IRL stuff done. But I am here for you guys, of course, as per usual, making these videos when I see things happening or just want to update you on my thoughts, right? So if you have been enjoying them, please don't forget to smash that like button, as it really does help. And I can't wait to see you all in the next one. Oh, go follow me on Twitter, by the way, at Tyler Hill YT. See you, everybody. Peace.